Discovered the incredible truth about real happiness and the hidden secrets of contentment. In the heart of a small, fading town where hopes once soared, Sarah Dempsey was a beacon of resilience. The air thickened with the weight of what used to be. Each day, she threw on her faded apron and walked the few blocks to the diner, a smile plastered on her face despite her tight chest. What drove her? It was the bright, curious eyes of her 10-year-old son, Ethan, whose laughter once echoed louder than the insects buzzing in the summer air. But now, even laughter felt fugitive, chased away by the mounting dread of economic decline. Whispers filtered through the streets, rumors of the affluent landowners hoarding what little resources remained, while the hard-working families like hers scraped by, their aspirations crumbling. One step into the diner, and the familiar creaks of the floor felt different, like they echoed in sadness. Yet, Sarah was determined. Behind the heavy doors, she served plates of warmth, trying to make ends meet from her 2 jobs, hope wrapped in bacon and eggs, a daily reminder she was still fighting for more than just survival. A sense of community that once wrapped around her began to fray at the edges. The 4th of July parades had dwindled, now they felt like ghosts of joy rather than jubilance, merely shadows of faded dreams. The local farmers, once the backbone of the town, faced devastating losses and mourned what they could no longer cultivate. Sarah's heart ached for them, for herself, but most of all, for Ethan, who just wanted a slice of childhood unaffected by the weight of the world. Then, one chilling winter evening, Sarah found herself wandering the town's outskirts, the wind scraping against her cheeks. There she stumbled upon an old community center, cloaked in layers of neglect and memories. It was a window into the past, a flicker of hope igniting in her weary heart. This dilapidated building held endless possibilities, a chance to rebuild connections fractured over years of despair. Maybe it could host gatherings, a space for families to unite, a refuge for dreams to rise again. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah's mind raced with possibilities, shadows of discontent simmered among townsfolk. Whispers of local corruption surfaced, exposing a rift between those profiting off others' hard work and those just trying to survive. It twisted in her gut. How could she fight for a brighter future for Ethan while preserving her loyalty to the people who nurtured her? Emotions shifted like the changing wind. Sarah could feel it in the air, a charged energy of anger rising, igniting something deep inside her. When she witnessed protesters rallying, voices melding into a chorus of defiance, everything became clear. This wasn't just about her and Ethan anymore, it was for the town she loved. Yet just as that clarity shone bright, another fear settled heavy over her heart. What if standing up meant losing what was left of her family, especially her estranged father? As the day of the town's showdown approached, anticipation crackled, her resolve unsteady. In every face, she saw the weight of similar emotions, yearning for justice, for a way back to belonging. The night was thick with potential. In moments of greatest impact, with Ethan's hand clutched tightly in hers, would they find reconciliation or be swallowed by the tumultuous tides of change? Sarah stood at the precipice of vulnerability and empowerment, the heart of her community resting on her shoulders. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Sarah felt a mixture of dread and determination brewing within her. Tomorrow would not only be a test for her but for the entire town. She looked down at Ethan, his innocent face illuminated by the fading light. It pained her to think of exposing him to the harsh realities she had borne for years. "Mom," he said, tugging at her apron. "Will it really be okay?" Her throat tightened. "We'll find a way, Ethan. I promise," she replied, the words feeling both empowering and hollow. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, the events of the day churned in her mind. The scene of the community center, how the peeling paint and broken windows had mirrored her own struggles, haunted her. She envisioned it transformed, with laughter echoing off its walls again. Perhaps that was the first step, a community united to fight for its future. The following day, the chill in the air did nothing to dampen the energy. Posters littered with hopeful slogans flapped against the streetlights as townsfolk gathered, their faces painted with apprehension intermingled with courage. Sarah's heart raced as she caught snippets of conversations, families discussing their fears, farmers lamenting the loss of their crops, and others rallying around the notion that enough was enough. Her own willingness to stand there among them felt surreal. She had often been the quiet observer, the one wishing for change but afraid to step into the fray. But now, as she held Ethan's hand, strength surged through her. "We're going to speak up today," she said softly, and he nodded, eyes wide, still trusting his mother. When the gathering began, Sarah could feel the weight of stares as she stepped forward. Voices grew quiet as she began to speak. "This town is more than just a place. It's our home. It's our lives, and we deserve better." Each word came from a place deep within, fueled by years of frustration and the hope that whispered to her whenever she looked at Ethan. As she spoke, she noticed one familiar face among the crowd, her estranged father, his brows furrowed, disbelief etched on his features. The sight jolted her heart. He had been a ghost in her life for too long. "Dad," she breathed, her voice wavering slightly. But there were no words exchanged between them, just a heavy silence that screamed of missed opportunities and heartache. As she wrapped up her speech, a newfound conviction echoed through the crowd, voices uniting. The energy was palpable, swelling like a tide. "Together we rise. Together we fight." They cried, their solidarity illuminating the darkness that had settled over their town. Yet, just as hope glimmered in their promises, a loud commotion broke through. Men in suits, the very landowners who had turned their backs on the community, arrived with their own sinister agenda. Fear seeped back into the atmosphere. "You think you can change anything?" one of them sneered, a sneer that cut deeper than a blade. Tension rippled through the crowd. Sarah's heart raced, realizing that this was more than just a struggle for resources. It was about dignity, respect, and the very fabric that held their community together. She could feel Ethan's grip tighten as the fear set in again. Her resolve began to shake. "Will our voices be silenced?" echoed in her mind. She took a deep breath, realizing the lines had been drawn, and she was right in the middle of it all. It was a pivotal moment, one she could not turn away from. As shadows of conflict loomed larger, she found herself torn between protecting her son and fighting for the future they all deserved. The weight of her choices hung heavily. Could one voice truly spark change, or would it end in despair? The stakes grew. In this battle, the outcome could change everything, but at what cost? As the men in suits advanced, their presence was like a storm cloud looming over a fragile village. Sarah could see the determination waver in the eyes of her neighbors, the flicker of fear starting to spread like wildfire. The mood shifted, and Ethan's grip on her hand turned from comfort to a plea for protection. "Mom, I don't like them," he whispered, tipping his head closer, seeking refuge in her side. "They want us to be scared," she whispered back, her voice steadying despite the chaos unfolding before her. Sarah took a small step forward, instinctively blocking Ethan from the gaze of the men. "Excuse me." One of the landowners called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "What makes you think the town can challenge the decisions we've made? You're just a bunch of lost souls clutching at straws." He looked around the crowd, confidence pouring from him as he scanned their faces. Some looked ready to back down, others angered but unsure how to respond. Sarah's heart thumped in her chest. Was she really the one expected to rally them? "I think you misunderstand us," she said, her voice louder than she intended, but it shook with a mixture of fear and resolve. "We're not lost. We see what you've done, and we refuse to let you take our home." The crowd stirred, energy shifting back into a more powerful current. Whispers of agreement started to spread. People were exchanging glances filled with unspoken promises of support. Sarah dared to look around, her heart swelling at the courage beginning to ignite among them. "Don't make promises you can't keep, Sarah." Another landowner chimed in, venom in his tone. You'll only hurt yourself and your boy. You think this will end well for you? But her heart didn't listen to the doubts. Instead, it was filled with an unfamiliar warmth, the feeling of a collective spirit emerging from the depths of despair. We will fight for our land, for our children. She declared, surprising even herself. This is for every farmer who lost their fields, every family who struggled to make ends meet. This isn't just about a building, it's about our heart and soul. The crowd roared in support, voices blending into a unified chant that echoed off the walls of the community center. For our children. For our future. Sarah could see her father in the distance, still frozen, but his expression had softened. She felt a flicker of hope. Could he really come back into her life, even as this battle waged on? The men in suits huddled together, their expressions shifting from arrogance to concern. It was a momentary crack in their facade, and Sarah felt a surge of determination. She had to seize it. We stand together. She bellowed, her heart racing. We create our happiness, and we will not let you destroy what we have fought for. Behind her, she felt Ethan's small hand squeeze hers tightly, the fear in his eyes now replaced with a mix of admiration and pride. This was a fight worth having, but just as the rallying cry reached its peak, an unexpected voice broke through the cries of determination. You think you're making a difference? A woman stepped forward, her own weight of experience evident. It was Mrs. Hanley, the town's former mayor, someone who had lived through a similar fight years ago. You don't know the whole story, Mrs. Hanley continued, the conflict in her expression undeniable. What you're facing today isn't just about land or resources. It's bigger than that. And the truth may change everything you believe. What did she mean? Sarah's heart dropped as a wave of uncertainty flooded her mind. Could there be a deeper truth lurking beneath their struggle? Would it change everything she fought for? The crowd hushed, an undercurrent of confusion rippling through them. With one revelation, the tide of emotions shifted once again. Fear intermingled with newfound curiosity, and Sarah knew they were at the precipice of something significant. What was Mrs. Hanley about to reveal? Mrs. Hanley took a breath, as if preparing to pull back the curtain on a long-hidden truth. The crowd watched her, caught between anticipation and anxiety. Sarah felt Ethan's grip tighten, his small knuckles white from the pressure. Every heart in the room seemed to beat in unison, a collective drum urging Mrs. Hanley to uncover whatever she held back. What you're facing, the land deals, the construction plans, it's not just about the property. Her voice trembled slightly but held a weight that drew everyone closer. It's about control. Control of the narratives we believe, control of our future. They want you to feel powerless, to think what they decide is final. The murmurs in the crowd surged, a wave of realization washing over them. Years ago, when I fought against similar forces, I was lost, just like you are, Mrs. Hanley continued, her eyes darting among the familiar faces. I thought if we stood together, we could push back. But the truth was deeper. The fight wasn't just against the men in suits. It was about understanding who we are, what we really want, not just as individuals, but as a community. Sarah's heart raced, visions of her neighbors, her friends struggling to keep their lives intact, filled her mind. What if they weren't just fighting for land? What if they were igniting a spark for something larger? Hope burned but flickered in her chest. Sometimes, the biggest battle is within us. It's about overcoming the fear that keeps us from seeing the truth, Mrs. Hanley said, glancing at Sarah. What good is the land if we lose each other in the process? A hush fell over them. Every gaze lingered on its own reflection, their faces painted with doubt and resilience. This was a moment that could shift everything. But what did it mean for Sarah? Could she reconcile the turmoil in her heart with the fight ahead? What do we do then? Someone called out from the back, the question piercing through the silence. Mrs. Hanley straightened, her voice firm. We must hold on to each other. We gather our stories, our truths, and we tell them together. When we do, nothing can stand in our way. Not their money, not their scare tactics. We've got the heart of this town in our hands. A roar erupted from the crowd, a mixture of fear and excitement weaved into a newfound mission. For every person who felt abandoned, each farmer who lost their land, every child who feared for their future, a thread of unity began to form. Ethan looked up at Sarah, his eyes sparkling with a mix of fear and fervor. "Mom, are we really going to stand together?" She nodded, confidence building as her heart swelled. "Yes, Ethan. We will. Together." But the wave of solidarity that washed over them shattered as another voice chimed in, this one colder, calculating. "Is that really how you want to approach this? By standing against us? You won't win this war." The man in the suit who had first mockingly addressed them stepped forward. His smirk cut through the fragile happiness, a reminder of the obstacles they faced. "Listen, we're ready for your little rebellion. You think stories will change minds? You're mistaken. We have the resources to obliterate this." The tension mounted, faces in the crowd tensed with uncertainty again. Mrs. Hanley raised her hand, but doubt haunted her eyes, just as it haunted Sarah. How were they to overcome such power? What plans lay hidden beneath the facade of authority? The fragile spark of hope began to flicker, and just as quickly, darkness loomed above them. Sarah's chest tightened. Could resilience be enough? Would their stories stand against an impending storm? With an uncertain heart, she glanced at Ethan, feeling the gravity of the battle ahead. What resources did they truly have, and was their sense of unity enough to uncover the truth lurking beneath the shadows? The crowd shifted uncomfortably, and Sarah felt the heat of uncertainty radiating around her like an invisible blanket, stifling and heavy. It was a stark contrast to the exhilarating surge of momentum they'd just felt. Mrs. Hanley's confident call for unity now hung in the air, sweet but fleeting, like the last rays of sunset fading into darkness. Applause slowly dwindled, and people exchanged anxious glances. Fear crackled within the group, threatening to suffocate them. The man in the suit continued, his voice dripping with mockery. "What stories do you think you can share that will make a difference against a machine like ours? You are just wasting your breath." Ethan craned his neck to see the stranger better, confused by the adult conversation swirling around him. "Mom, what does he mean? Why can't our stories matter?" Sarah swallowed hard, searching for the right words, but they evaded her like shadows in the dusk. "They matter, Ethan. They really do. Sometimes you have to believe that even if someone is trying to hurt you, standing up with your voice is worth it." "But what if it doesn't work?" he asked, his eyes wide with worry. "Then we'll keep fighting until it does," she declared, surprising even herself. The firmness of her own voice steadied her. If Mrs. Hanley had the courage to stand there and speak, then so could she. Ethan nodded slowly, his small hand still gripping hers. Sarah felt him draw strength from her resolve, just as she drew strength from everyone around them. But even as she felt their collective hope swell, paranoia flickered at the back of her mind. What were the powerful really planning? Mrs. Hanley interjected, raising her voice despite the growing tension. "You can intimidate us, but you cannot silence us. The more you insist on your power, the more we will stand together to reclaim our truth." Another round of applause erupted, though quieter, as if the crowd could only muster so much bravery at once. Sarah sensed the energy shift, whispers of defiance began to ripple through those nearby, like a forest stirred by the wind. Yet, the man in the suit was relentless. "This is your last chance. Withdraw now, accept the offers, or I assure you you will have more to lose than just your homes. You will lose the very soul of your community." His warning hung in the air like an iron weight, heavy and cold. Hope turned to dread, and faces drained of color as the crowd collectively inhaled a deep breath, uncertainty wrapping around them once again. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest. She needed to break this cycle of intimidation. She turned to Mrs. Hanley. "What do we do? How do we fight against that kind of fear?" Mrs. Hanley took a moment, her eyes scanning the crowd, absorbing the wavering confidence she sparked. "Sarah, this fear is a weapon they use against us. We will expose them. We need each one of you to be brave enough to share your truth, to stand up and be counted. We have to gather our stories. Each voice is a thread that weaves stronger fabric. The groups nodded, determination beginning to ignite again. But they also knew fear still lurked, shrouded in unanswered questions. With resolve, Sarah stepped forward, her words trembling with the weight of her heart. If he can threaten us now, imagine how much stronger we'll be united. We're not just fighting for our land or our livelihoods, we're fighting for our very identity. For our children's future. If we don't tell our stories, we'll all disappear. The crowd stirred again, renewed energy weaving its way through them, their eyes lighting up as they contemplated a stand. But just as the murmur of agreement escalated, the man in the suit stepped in, a menacing glint in his eyes. That's cute. But remember, we are not alone. We have resources at our disposal you haven't even begun to comprehend. Don't say we didn't warn you when this escalates. As he retreated, a deafening silence fell over them, the flicker of hope quaking once more. Sarah's heart sank, the fear creeping back into her mind. Could they really withstand the storm that was coming? Gathering her nerves, she squeezed Ethan's hand tighter and took a deep breath. This was only the beginning, and if they were to rise above this threat, they would have to dig deeper and stand stronger than ever before. What awaited them on this uncertain path? Would they truly uncover the truths hiding in their own stories, and would those stories be enough? The answers lingered just out of reach, tantalizing and terrifying all at once. As the silence deepened, Sarah could almost hear the thoughts of the crowd swirling like autumn leaves caught in a breeze. They were scared, and she couldn't blame them. This was no ordinary confrontation, it felt like a pivotal moment, reverberating through the fabric of their community. She could see the uncertainty etched on their faces, the flickers of doubt mixed with fleeting sparks of courage. "Let us gather," Mrs. Hanley said, her voice breaking the spell of silence. "We need to hear from each other. We need to remind one another why we're here." Those words ignited a flicker within Sarah, a reminder of purpose amidst chaos. Around her, people began shifting, forming smaller circles. Families huddled close, eyes darting nervously, while others sought the warmth of camaraderie. The more people shared, the more the fear seemed to crumble, like walls made of sand. Sarah guided Ethan toward a nearby group. A woman in a faded sweatshirt spoke first, her voice trembling. "I grew up in this town. My father built that community center down the street. They're planning to tear it down for a new mall." Her tears glinted under the setting sun, a tangible reminder of homes, dreams, and memories at stake. As the stories unfolded, Sarah felt each personal tale weave a thread into the tapestry of their shared fight. Each voice added strength. The young man who had lost his father to a factory accident spoke about the lack of safety oversight that had led to that tragedy. An elderly couple recounted memories of a time when community meant connection, not corporate greed. Tears flowed and hearts opened, each story a step away from fear and a stride toward unity. As Sarah listened, something inside her shifted. She understood now that vulnerability was not just a risk but a weapon. Each person stepping forward was dismantling that iron weight of fear. She felt her own voice rising with urgency. "You see, our stories are our armor. They give us power. Each memory you share breaks down their walls. If we stand together, they can't silence us." The crowd erupted in murmurs, hope blossomed anew, but just as this wave of unity began to swell, Sarah glanced sideways and her heart raced. There, at the edge of the gathering, the suited stranger watched. Even from afar, his presence felt oppressive. Chills ran down her spine as she caught his eye, and it was as though he communicated a threat without uttering a single word. "Listen," Sarah continued, though her voice quivered slightly. "Every single one of us has a reason to stand here. Some of us have lost so much, and we can't afford to lose more. We can't let them take our stories and our people." The energy shifted yet again, pulsating through the crowd. Hands flew up, voices began to join together, singing promises of resistance and hope. They shared their stories, a collective narrative fighting back against the tide of fear, but as the crowd swelled with emotion and defiance, Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. She could sense the looming threat deeply rooted in the man's earlier words. What resources? The question hung heavy in her mind. What did he mean? She turned to Ethan, who stood beside her, eyes wide with a mixture of doubt and hope. We're stronger together, right? Right, Mom, he said, though his voice wavered slightly. This was just the beginning. Sarah needed to know what the man in the suit had planned. She couldn't shake the feeling there was more beneath the surface. The fight they were about to embark on wasn't just about stories, it was about standing against a tide of intimidation. With a determined heartbeat, she looked around. We're not alone, she rallied, her voice gaining strength. Let us reach out to other communities. Let us gather stories from everywhere. We will show them our strength. As a cheer rose from the crowd, it felt almost like a promise, ringing through the chilly air. But one thought gnawed at Sarah's mind: what if their stories were not enough? What if the darkness of fear loomed larger than they could anticipate? The moment felt electric, charged with the promise of change. But outside of their hopeful bubble, shadows lurked, and the threat was real. What secret did the man in the suit hold? And how far would he go to protect it? As the crowd buzzed with energy, Sarah felt an unusual quickening of her pulse. The electric atmosphere surrounded her like a mist, thick and intoxicating. Excitement and fear collided within her chest, each heartbeat resonating with the weight of her purpose. She scanned the faces around her, searching for reassurance, for something she could cling to amidst the uncertainty. One grandmother, clutching her grandchild's hand tightly, looked up at Sarah with eyes full of hope. What will we do next? She asked, her voice small yet firm. Her question carried the gravity of every heartache, every shared memory, every reason they gathered here today. We gather strength, Sarah replied, mustering a confidence she wasn't sure she felt. We share more stories. We reach out, find others who care. And we prepare. She could see nods of agreement ripple through the crowd, yet, even as she spoke, Sarah couldn't shake the image of the man in the suit looming at the edge of the gathering. It was like a puppet master controlling a brooding storm, ready to strike at the first sign of weakness. Let us organize, Sarah announced, her voice rising above the murmurs, firm, resolute. I want you all to think of how we can connect with neighboring towns, schools, anyone who values our community. We'll set up meetings, write letters. We'll use their fear against them. Shouts of agreement erupted, riling the crowd into a fervor. Excitement surged, coursing through her like wildfire. But in the back of her mind, a question whispered, what if it wasn't enough? What if they encountered obstacles that their stories alone couldn't overcome? The thoughts danced in her mind like shadows, but Sarah pushed them down. The people around her felt so alive and engaged, their passion igniting something inside her. She could feel that unity wrapping around them all, fragile yet unwavering. Let us appoint people to reach out, collect stories from everyone, Sarah continued. We'll gather signatures for petitions. We'll share everything we have. If we appear organized, they'll see us, hear us. A chorus of voices rose in agreement, praise and resolve swelling like the tide. But then, a voice cut through the excitement. And what if they don't listen? It was Ethan, now looking to her with wide, questioning eyes. What if we're just wasting our time? For a moment, silence seeped into the air, heavy like a winter fog. All eyes turned toward Sarah, waiting not just for an answer, but for reassurance. She knelt down beside her son, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her heart. We're not wasting our time, Ethan. We have to keep going, even if things are hard. That's what makes us who we are. It's not just about what happens next, it's about how we stand up, how we show we care. As she spoke, something shifted in the air. She recognized that her words echoed not just for Ethan, but for everyone standing here. They weren't alone, even against the looming uncertainty. Each of them carried pieces of hope in their hearts, but just as their resolve seemed to solidify, a shrill honk shattered the moment an expensive black car pulled up, the suited man stepping out. The crowd went eerily silent as he adjusted his tie, scanning the group with a chilling smile that felt like ice down their spines. "Hello, neighbors," he said, the edges of his voice sharp and calculated. "I've come to discuss." Sarah's heart raced. This was the confrontation they feared. They couldn't let him intimidate them now. What does he want? She thought, her breath hitching. Would he try to fracture what they had built? Would he threaten their resolve? As tension hung thick in the air, she knew this was only the beginning. Was this man here to negotiate a resolution or to declare war? Sarah's hand tightened around Ethan's. It was no longer just about their stories, it was about courage in the face of looming darkness. What was he really after? And how far would he go to break their unity? The suited man stepped closer, a predator closing in on its prey. His smile remained intact, yet it felt hollow, like an empty shell. "I've come to discuss," he repeated as if the words alone could deflate the tension, but they only tightened it further. The crowd shuffled uneasily, eyes flickering between Sarah and the man. She could feel the pulse of uncertainty throbbing around her. Was it possible they had misjudged him? Or was he just biding his time, waiting for the right moment to unleash his agenda? "Discuss." Sarah finally spoke, a hint of defiance lacing her words. "What do you mean, discuss? What is it you really want?" He widened his stance, hands relaxed at his sides. "This community, it's bustling with passion, isn't it? But passion can be easily manipulated." The way he said it made Sarah's skin crawl, as if he was peeling back layers of their purpose, exposing the raw vulnerability beneath. "What do you know about our passion?" a voice shouted from the back, and soon a ripple of support surged through the crowd. Sarah felt pride swell within her. They were no longer just uncertain individuals, they were a united front. He cocked an eyebrow, eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk surveying its territory. "I know enough to understand that change is scary. And fear makes people do strange things." He leaned forward slightly, calculating. "I think I could offer you a solution." Ethan pulled at her arm, concern etched on his young face. "Mom, what does he mean?" She held him close, grounding herself. "Let us hear him out," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "But stay alert. Let us say I'm here to help," the man continued, a silky tone sliding over his words. "What if I told you that the very stories you cherish could be turned into something far more profitable? I'm talking partnerships with local businesses, televised segments, a platform for your voices to be heard." "Profitable?" someone questioned from the sidelines, and murmurs grew louder. "Is this about money for you?" He shrugged, the movement casual, almost dismissive. "Everything is about money, my friends. But it doesn't have to be just about that. It could also mean influence, power, and opportunity to control your narrative." His eyes glinted under the overhead lights, that hollow smile re-emerging as he gauged their reactions. Sarah's heart raced. Was this how they were to be handled? Like pawns in someone else's game? And at what cost? She questioned, her voice firm yet wavering inside. "What would we give up for your so-called opportunity?" His smile faltered for a brief moment, but then it returned, wider and more sinister. "Nothing but your trust." He stepped back, arms open as if embracing a larger audience. "Trust me, and we can shape this community together. But distrust me, and you'll find the fear I mentioned is very real." Gasps filled the air, a wave of disbelief washing over the crowd. Sarah felt her resolve harden. "We don't need you, and we don't need your manipulation. We have our stories, our community. That is stronger than anything you could offer." He laughed then, a low, mocking sound that echoed across the gathering. "You think your stories are enough? In this world? Without the right connections, they fall on deaf ears." Anger sparked in Sarah's chest. "We'll make ourselves heard." "You're wrong, our unity is our strength." "And that's exactly what I'm counting on," he replied, tipping his head as if commending her faith. But remember, unity and passion can be swayed. We'll see how long that lasts when faced with real opposition. With that, he turned and walked back toward his car, the tension palpable in the air. Whispers rippled like waves as the crowd strained to digest everything that just unfolded. Sarah knelt low to Ethan, trying to read his unmoving face. "Did you see how he tried to play with our fears? We're stronger than that, right?" Ethan's brow furrowed, uncertainty lingering. "But what if he's right, Mom? What if they can just take everything from us?" She squeezed his shoulder gently, willing her own fear away. "Then we fight back. Together." As the crowd began to murmur again, she realized one truth: the man might have offered a twisted vision of partnership, but they would not bend. They would forge their own path, even if it led into the darkest of storms. But as she looked into the distance, she couldn't shake that tingling sensation of dread creeping up her spine. Was their unity truly enough to withstand the storm that was coming? And as she lifted her gaze, she saw shadows gathering at the edges of the gathering, the man's people lurking, ready to pounce. Did they have the strength to stand firm, or were they on the brink of something far more dangerous than she imagined? The shadows around the periphery of the gathering loomed larger, like dark clouds preparing to burst. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as her eyes darted between Ethan and the suited man's retreating figure. She could feel the crowd's anxious energy. Some were murmuring, others were stealing glances toward the edges, where uncertainty curled, and whispered. "Mom, look!" Ethan hissed, pulling on her sleeve as if he could physically drag her attention back to him. His eyes were wide, pupils flaring with fear. "What are they doing?" Sarah followed his gaze, spotting a group of sharply dressed figures standing silently, watching. They looked too calm, too calculating, and every instinct screamed that they were part of the man's scheme, a plan brewing just out of sight. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, though her own heart raced. "Just remember what we talked about. We have to stick together. No matter what." The crowd wavered, unsure of themselves. Sarah took a deep breath to steady her nerves. This was not just about her and Ethan, it was their entire community, built on shared stories and hard-earned trust. She needed to rally them, to reignite that fire. "Everyone!" she called out, her voice firm, cutting through the uncertainty. "We've faced tough times before, haven't we? They think we're afraid. But we're not. We're a family, and families fight for one another." Some faces brightened at her words, nodding in agreement. She noticed a few older folks clutching hands, the unity palpable like an electric current. But the shadows didn't flicker away, they remained. One figure, a tall man with steel-gray hair and piercing blue eyes, stepped out from the darkness. "And what exactly do you plan to do about it, Sarah?" he asked, his tone mocking, eyes gleaming as if understanding their plight better than they did. She squared her shoulders, feeling the weight of responsibility for everyone around her. "We refuse to give in. This community is our strength, and will stand firm against anyone trying to pull us apart." The silver-haired man stepped closer, and Sarah recognized him, a local business owner who'd fallen out of touch with the community, enthralled instead by profits. "Your strength?" he laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Strength doesn't protect against what we all know is coming. With change comes conflict, and you, dear, are not equipped to fight it." She felt her heartbeat in her throat. "You underestimate us. We've weathered storms before, and we will again. It's not just about financial gains, it's about our stories, our roots. What will you do when the real opposition comes knocking? When we face the power and influence he represents?" He gestured towards the direction the suited man had gone, a fearsome certainty in his voice. "Can your stories defeat that?" There was silence, thick and painful. Sarah scanned the faces around her, searching for hope and resolve amidst the uncertainty. With each flicker of doubt, she saw the potential for unity. "We'll find a way together. If we're truly bonded by our stories, there's nothing we can't face." Ethan squeezed her hand, grounding her. We can do this, right, Mom? His voice shook slightly, but it held the strength of a child's unwavering faith. Absolutely, she replied, and the conviction in her words soothed the storm brewing inside. But it's up to all of us. Are you with me? There was a pause, then a few brave souls nodded, voices rising to join her call. Together, they echoed the affirmation, a chorus growing louder, filled with determination, yet, as they rallied, the suited man's figures drew nearer, their faces more defined now, men and women dressed in the same dark, tailored suits, their stares suggesting calculation. Sarah's spine tingled, every instinct told her they were closing in, the air shifted, thick with tension, as she understood the fight was only just beginning. Stay strong. She called, locking eyes with those around her. Together, we can fend them off. But in the back of her mind lingered a question that turned like a dull blade: what if their unity faltered when faced with real danger? Did they truly have the strength to face this impending storm? And then, the leader of the shadowed figures stepped up, unfurling a piece of paper. Perhaps this will shed some light on exactly what you're getting into, he said, his voice smooth and sharp. Shall we see what lies ahead? The paper illuminated a shadow of truth, contracts, negotiations, and secrets woven through the fabric of their town's fate. The crowd's murmur crescendoed into an uneasy silence, each person grappling with the stark reality of their situation. Sarah felt the harsh weight of uncertainty press down, like a storm gathering intensity. What does it say? Ethan's whisper cut through the air, holding as much fear as hope. Mrs. Hanley stepped forward, fierce determination radiating from her. It's a deal, isn't it? She said, her voice rising above the tremors of the crowd. You've turned us into pawns in a game we didn't even know we were playing. Precisely, the suited man replied with a mocking smirk. You're already in the middle of it. What's left to decide is how you'll play your part. The crowd shifted, uncertainty swirling like leaves caught in a gust. Sarah felt a sharp tug at her heart. This was the moment they had all dreaded. Yet, within that tension, she felt a flicker of clarity. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about fighting for who they truly were. Stop it! She shouted, forcing the words through gritted teeth. They were not alone. She could feel the resolve of the town behind her, the shared stories binding them in ways the corporate suits could never understand. Listen, she continued, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. You think you can break us with deals and threats? We're not here to play your games. Each of us holds a piece of this town's history, and we want to let you erase us. Applause erupted from the crowd, breaking the tension. Every story shared before felt like armor, each person linking to the others, stronger together than apart. She could see the spark of courage igniting in familiar faces, bouncing off their shared resolve, but the suited man remained unfazed, shaking his head with cynical amusement. And what will that do? This is bigger than all of you. It's about control over the resources, over your futures. You can either align with me, or face the consequences of defiance. Fear flickered anew, and Sarah's heart raced. What would those consequences look like? Would they truly be crushed underfoot, just another memory of what once was? We stand for our families. A voice rang out. It was a farmer, tears glistening in his eyes. We won't back down. That singular, brave proclamation broke through the lingering hesitations. One voice, then another, joined like a chain of resilience, echoing the essence of their shared struggle. Sarah stepped back, letting the energy of the moment wash over her. She began to see the shifting tides of power, each moment fraught with an intensity that transformed fear into a collective roar. People began to speak about the losses they had faced, the dreams that had vanished, and the courage it took to rebuild. Their stories filled the air like a tonic, weaving an unbreakable bond. These were tales of love and loss, waiting to breathe anew in the sun. Together, we rise. Mrs. Hanley shouted, her voice echoing the mantra Sarah now felt surging through her veins. Then, turning to the man in the suit, Sarah found her voice once again. You can't take that from us. We will resist. We will stand up against your manipulation and lies. Our voices will drown out your threats. Around her, heads nodded. Faces hardened with determination, the shadows stirring at the edges grew fainter. United, they stood in front of their adversaries, a wall of resolved hearts and hopeful souls. The suited man squared his jaw, the confidence draining from his eyes. He had underestimated them, underestimated the power of their stories. This isn't over, he said, a faraway edge in his voice before waving his hand, indicating his people to retreat. But it begins today, Sarah whispered, the truth sparkling like untainted sunlight breaking through dark clouds. With each passing moment, they felt lighter, the atmosphere shifted into a current of hope, buoyed by connection and purpose. As the suited man and his entourage stepped away, the shadow they cast receded, replaced by a powerful light that flickered from within the light of their community. No more would they be divided by fear. Together, they would build, reclaim, and share their truths, turning their scars into stories that glimmered with strength and hope. As they clasped hands, Sarah felt Ethan squeeze her fingers tightly. His worried gaze met hers, melting away all worries in a serene smile. "Mom, we did it, didn't we?" "Yes, we did," she replied, tears stinging her eyes, tears of pride, relief, and an overwhelming love for the beautiful resilience they all shared. And as they began to organize, forge plans, and spread their voices like wildfire to schools, to families, to anyone willing to listen, the darkness that once loomed over them had been replaced by a dawning light of community. They had embraced their stories, and in doing so, reignited the spirit of their town. This was just the beginning. Together, they were unstoppable. Now, let me tell you, if you felt the power of this journey, you need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and let others feel this inspiration. Please comment below with your reactions and feelings about this transforming finale. Don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. The world deserves to know the power of community.